Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alon.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, welcome back, listeners. We're so excited to have you back with us for another episode. And Alon and I are especially excited to bring this episode to you. We've been looking forward to this one for a while, getting it scheduled and then recorded and now able to bring it to you. Our guest today is James Kutnow. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a principal at a local charter school, and he's also a close personal friend of Alon. And so we just can't wait to share his story with you. We get into manhood, we get into parenting, some discipline, even a whole riff on donuts there for a bit, and some of the best places to enjoy donuts here in the Central Ohio area. But before we do that, I just want to remind you that we are always open to your feedback, your suggestions, questions, comments. Those of you that have been listening for a while, you know the email address. It's feedback@thenextmanup.com. You can also get us on Facebook or Twitter @thenextmanup1 are our handles. So without any further ado, here comes our conversation with James Kutnow.
James, so good to have you with us, man.
Good to be here.
Yeah, this is great. I'm excited. I've been excited to have you on. Well, one, because you're just a good guy and the work that you do, but you're fun. So cool. Mark.
Yeah.
Good to see you, man.
Likewise.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited for this. This is somebody that's kind of near and dear to your heart and the work that you do, and so you've been excited about this conversation for a while.
Yes,
so
indeed.
I'm excited to get to know you, James. Thank you for being a guest on this and bringing your story and your experience and your wisdom and your bumps and your bruises and your scar, all of that, right? The whole package. So a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So James, let's jump in. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, your background, that kind of thing?
Sure. I am just turned 40 last year.
That's
right. I'm over 40. And
Welcome.
have 3 kids and have been married almost 20 years. So
Nice.
We're getting closer on that.
That's cool.
We have hopped all over the place, but have called Columbus our home for about 12 years. And so my oldest is 17 and my youngest is 11. And so the younger 2 are both boys. The middle child is 15. Just took him to get his learner's permit last week.
That's cool.
Big doings right there.
Yeah.
Took him out for the first time to drive in the car, and it's like, here we go again. All right.
Well, you've been through this once already, right?
So we did. Yeah,
we should have it all figured out.
With my daughter, it's different with a boy in different ways.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows yet the cost of insurance. So we're having fun.
He will.
That's right. But yeah, I've worked in education for most of my life. I was thinking not too long ago that I think only twice I've not had a summer break, which is amazing. I don't take that for granted.
Cha-ching.
But yeah, for the last 12 years, I have worked for a small charter school network in Central Ohio called the Graham Family of Schools. And so for the last 9 years, I have been in charge of the Graham Elementary and Middle School, a K through 8th school that's located about 2 blocks from Ohio State University. I get to work with Alon every day.
So much fun.
So that's how we know each other, is through work and other circles as well. But
people may not notice about you, but James, you're an avid Philadelphia sport fan, correct?
just Philadelphia in general. I'm a big fan of Philadelphia, but yes.
So when a couple of years ago, when it was New England Patriots going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, me and James were at each other's throats.
I can imagine.
Yes, and I had
no love lost there, right?
Bragging rights for 1 year.
Oh,
you did.
Gosh,
that was a big year for the Eagles.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
it was like, the Patriots lost, and the first thing I thought was, I'm never going to hit an end of this series. Never. And sure enough, the next day, Philadelphia gear, he's sending me little pictures and memes and such. It was like,
Tom Brady crying.
You got to give the guy his moment. Like, Brady's been on the top of the heap for 2 decades.
It was my only response was like, well, I guess we can let you guys win one, but
throw him a bone.
It still hurt.
I don't even know how many rings Tom Brady has, and I don't really even care.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh gosh, I do. Hey, he came from Michigan.
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
and
Michigan.
As we were talking before we got on the microphones, the connection with my son and Andrew and Alon. My son is a huge Patriots fan, and I don't know how. It just sort of happened, and I've allowed it. I've allowed it because Tom Brady is a University of Michigan.
Yeah, right,
exactly.
So you should be a Patriot fan.
Well, I'm partial.
Okay, I tried. I was reaching. I know.
Yeah, it's okay.
So James, on this show we like to ask our guests, what was it like for you as a son? Growing up, what was your father's impact on your life? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think through what that experience was like, a couple things pop out in that. I was a middle child and I was an only son. And so I think that was the best of both worlds, because I think my older sister went through that, the first set of rules and the kind of the brunt
She cut the wake for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I slid up, and I think just at least in my family dynamics, being the male, there was a little bit even more leniency. But being the second child, I got away with a lot of stuff and took advantage of that, not in a bad way. I never really look back and regret stuff. But I mean, I think it made my childhood easy. But I have fond memories of my dad doing stuff with me, wiffle ball in the backyard or going to the park and playing tennis. And we used to go to Phillies games all the time as a young child. It was $5, $4 for him and $1 for me, and we parked for free 3 blocks from the gate. So we weren't season ticket holders. We didn't have that kind of money, but we went to 10, 12 games a year easily, and that was a lot of fun. Just going to the games with him and that shared experience. And then my dad was a minister, so we had a guy in our church who worked for the organization and got free tickets to every game, and he had no family or friends in Philadelphia. He just wasn't from the area. So he told my dad, anytime you guys need tickets, just call me up.
Sweet.
We'll go to roll call. So when I got to about 12 years old and through most of the rest of my days growing up, we would just, hey, we need 4 tickets, and we'd show up and we'd get really good seats. Yeah. And this is when the Phillies are absolutely terrible. All through the 80s.
That's why the prices were so cheap.
But those memories of just going down to the ballpark with my dad, having that experience. I mean, and he would listen to the radio in the seats, and I would keep score, and we just didn't talk a lot. But we had our time, and it was just, that experience,
That's
and
cool.
So that's part of that memory and looking back. My parents did a great job of providing opportunities for me, getting involved with sports, and I had a great. I look back and have really good memories growing up.
Good for you.
Yeah,
man. Do you feel like there are things that your dad helped instill in you to make you the man that you are today?
I think that's a great question, because I think there are things that he did without intentionality that just happened, and I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of thinking of the intentionality of fatherhood, and I'm sure if he and I had a one-on-one conversation, like let's look back and talk about what did you do intentionally, things would probably surface more than I see now. Because again, I had a good relationship with him. I remember different conversations about different things at specific moments, especially as I got older. But there wasn't, I don't look back and think like, oh, my dad did this. Like, we didn't go hunting together. I remember the only time I went fishing with my dad is when he took me to a stock trout farm that guaranteed catch a fish. He just wasn't an outdoorsman. I think it probably wasn't until I was in college and I was, getting to know some other guys and building some pretty strong relationships and trying to think through my process of male development. It hit me that, my dad was a single child, an only child, so he had no other siblings, and his father died when he was 14. And he was also an older man. I think he was 67 when my dad was born.
Oh, wow.
And so he almost had a dad that was like a grandfather in age, and then he passed away when he was 14, a critical moment at a boy's development. And so what did he experience as a dad?
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't necessarily have a model of the intentional fathering to pass along. I think that's fair to say. So I think that impacted our relationship and the things that I've thought about now as an adult.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
60. Oh, in his 60s.
Oh, I could tell you. So here's a little history for you. So my grandfather, my dad's dad, was born in 1888. His dad was also an old father. So this is generational, I guess, as we talk about it. So my great-grandfather was born in 1844 or 46.
Wow.
Yeah, like my great-grandfather could have fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
I can't,
there was nothing pivotal in the history of the country going on back then.
No, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got nothing.
Wow.
That's craziness.
Yeah.
That's craziness. So,
even if you talk that out loud, now that I think about it, I think I am an only son. I had two sisters, but I think the one son factor goes back like 4 generations.
Okay.
That I know of.
Okay.
So that's an interesting, how does that work with families and what you learn and what you pick up, what traditions are passed on.
Interesting. So you would say it was more unintentional fathering.
I guess
from your dad.
I hate to use that word because
it does sound kind of negative.
I've had a sit down conversation with him about it. Like I remember going to Denny's and having the talk when I was like,
right.
You mean the talk?
Yeah. I remember talking about things like music with him and girls once in a while. It's just. There were times where I got in trouble and had to have conversations with him. Sure. But I don't remember back that like I'm going to strategically do these things and
to build character.
I remember in college I came home my freshman year, and I think I initiated with him to go out to breakfast, and so we did that for the whole summer, and he started sharing things that meant a lot to him, and you know, as an adult, as a man, and I'm like, man, why haven't we done this before? Like we should have been doing this all through high school, that kind of thing. So that also impacted my thinking as I got older and became a father, and
So let's switch gears here. So like you mentioned like, with some of your friends in college, like thinking through like your male development. When did you feel like you arrived as like, you know what? I'm a man. Like I'm no longer a boy. I'm a man now. Like when was that for you?
Honestly, I think it was the first day of college.
Okay.
I remember very distinctively, like my parents never took me to college. They sent me on the Greyhound. It just didn't work on schedules. I had to be there early for soccer, and so they put me on the Greyhound. I showed up. I unpacked my bags. I knew my clothes were coming 2 weeks later in the mail. I unloaded. I'm in the dorm room, and I'm looking around like, I can do whatever I want. And it wasn't like I had all this like craziness available to me. It's just like hit me like, yeah, I had freedoms as a teenager and my parents let me make decisions, but like, no, like I don't report to anyone now. And there's rules to follow and society around you. But I think at that point I realized like this is different. I gotta hold my own with my peers. I have to take responsibility. I have to, do I get up for breakfast or not? All my friends were like, I'm not going to breakfast at 7 in the morning. I'm like, well, why not? We paid for it. I'm going to breakfast. I like breakfast. That's kind of, having to make decisions for myself. I really do. I think when I first went to college, I realized like, okay, I got to do this.
That's neat.
It's interesting that you can go back 20 years and be like, yep, I remember that moment, that reflection, that the power of in that moment, like, okay, I got to figure this out because there's nobody here to really tell me what to do, what not to do type of thing.
Yeah.
That's neat, man.
Yeah, and I think, too, that stems into my adult relationship with my parents because, we keep up and talk and text once in a while and call back and forth. But we're not extremely close, per se. Like, as I look at other families that, the kids talk to their parents every week or ask for advice, and it's not part of my, MO with my parents. And my sister, even with my sisters, it's different. And I don't think that's wrong. And you could always say, hey, you could have done better this, or you could improve on this, for sure. But I think it started back then of like, I didn't have a cell phone. I'm not, nothing was that accessible anyway. And I went 12 hours away to college. And so it's just like, I gotta figure it out.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah.
Some people are dumped into that situation. Sure. I don't feel like that. I feel like, okay, it just was what it was.
You feel like you were prepared and like it was the right next step for you to take.
Sure.
That's cool. So, as a dad now, like, what are like how? I guess I'm wondering, like, what do you do with your son?
Yeah.
Like, is it the same level?
No, or that's a struggle.
Yeah.
I would say that before I answer that question, going back to college, I am blessed because I made lifetime friends starting my sophomore year in college. There were a group of 5 of us that realized, man, we take pretty much all the same classes together. I think we're in the same major, so we're probably going to continue to do that. There was a travel abroad program we realized we were all going to go to that next year. It's just, we realized something and we're like, hey, we should get together and just hang out and get to know each other. And so we started to do that. And so for most of my 3 years of college, we met every Wednesday night for like 2 hours.
Okay.
Intentionally. And we off the bat, it was just kind of like, well, we kind of like each other and hang out with each other and have fun with each other. Let's just do it. And then it became like, this can be something else. This can be more. And there were other aspects of that influenced that. Like once we got in trouble for shooting a water balloon launcher in the hallway of the dorm, and an hour later we're all outside because the alarm goes off. We didn't get caught, but we turned ourselves in. And then we were required to meet with the dean of students, and we were like, dude, this guy's awesome.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, can we meet with you like every week? And so we started to meet at his house for coffee every Monday night. And that led to a couple other relationships with some important guys, professors at the university. So all that. Then after I graduated, I got married right away and then got a job and worked at a university as a residence hall director. And my boss that first year had a huge impact on me because of some of his own interests in male development theory and how that impacts student development theory. And so he gave me a couple of resources that I just ate up.
Okay.
One book in particular was a foundational book on male development that came out in the 80s called Iron John that retells a grim fairy tale and walks through some theory of male development. And so I remember reading that and rereading it and just trying to, what does this mean as a Christian, and what makes sense in terms of my own life?
Yeah.
And then specifically things like initiations and how do we do that in a society that doesn't really have a place for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so then having sons and having these conversations over time with other people and trying to think through, okay, it's time. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, yeah.
So now back to your question, I've tried to be intentional with both boys. And even this summer, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm not doing the things I did with my first son because whatever, life and craziness. But, a good friend of mine and I were on the same wavelength, and our boys are 2 days apart from each other. Okay. And so we made a point of when they turn 10, we're going to take them out camping in the Smoky Mountains. We're going to climb the chimney tops, but they're going to plan the whole thing.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit in that. We both had read some of the same books and thoughts. And so anyway, there was a camp in Indiana called Father-Son Camp that he was tied into for a few years before I was. And he's like, James, you got to come to this. So we signed up. We did that a few times. So that I appreciate what they're doing in other camps like that, because they're providing an avenue of intentionalities for people that aren't thinking that way, perhaps, and are linking right into it and making those relationships more meaningful. And so, again, like I said, I did that with my oldest. Haven't done that with the youngest, and probably won't. Just circumstances and time and that kind of thing. But how do I introduce some of those things with my own kids?
Yeah.
And how do I make it different for a different child?
Yeah, because that's important. I mean, we were just talking on another episode about, things that work for one child, like it just doesn't fit. It's just, you know what I mean? Not it's not a one size fit all kind of scenario
kid's different
most of the times. You know what I mean? And so like to figure out, okay, how do I make this work with you? It takes some thinking.
Well, what I've learned, I think more than anything, is the need to just take risks and just go after it. Because even as I reference, going out to breakfast with my dad, one of my closest friends from college, one of those guys, we were chatting about this a couple years ago, and he's like, yeah, your 13-year-old son's not going to be initiating that breakfast. Like, you have to ask him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's not going to come and say, hey, I'm wondering about... No. You have to speak into that. And it was a good conversation. One of the things that I think I'm known for among friends is my love for donuts.
You love donuts.
Nice.
I do, but I don't.
But they're so good.
But okay, so here's the thing. Like, donuts are good. Get a good donut, I'll eat it. I know every donut shop in Columbus.
So how do you not love donuts?
Right, I'm confused.
No,
You're going to have to help me here.
But I don't sit around like, I just need a donut. The purpose, the story behind it is that another friend of mine and I were like, we need to get together. So let's just make it a point to get together every Saturday morning. We're going to go get donuts. And let's take our kids with us.
Nice.
And so a couple years back, we started to do that. And we were like, let's go to a different donut place every Saturday.
Right.
And so I would say there was one year in particular, we probably went to like 16 different donut places in Columbus.
Jeez.
And we just brought our kids with us, our boys with us, and it just hung out, had conversations.
Interesting.
But there was the intentionality behind it. So then I became like, Kutnow knows the donuts.
But that's one of the first things I found out about you was like, the guy knew where every donut place was.
But that's because like it's the tool for which you can have that intentional meeting. Same thing with, you could do it with coffee, you do it with pizza, and I think that's the one thing that I've learned. Like you just need to initiate and do it.
Well, that's what I hear in recounting that story. It sounds like it was two guys that were like, hey, let's get together and let's try donuts. And then from there it became, here's a way for us to draw our kids into it, to be intentional with them, have a conversation and an activity, right? Yeah. We talk about that. It's more, going back to your Phillies games, it was an activity, but the conversation opportunity might have been missed. So here's an activity and conversation around
shared
it.
Experience.
Yes, exactly. Powerful.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Dude. So, I love donuts. I think.
By the way, while you're thinking, what do you recommend as the best donut place in Columbus?
I think the best donut place is DK Diner.
Really?
Out in Grandview, because they
DK
make
Diner.
them. They're homemade.
All right.
You heard it
they're
from the donut man himself.
Did you know there's different types? I didn't know this till
yeast
I got
donuts,
into it.
cake donuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So not everybody knows this.
Yeah.
You got these little like mini places that put weird toppings on them.
Yeah.
Like,
How about that bacon donut from Buckeye Donut?
Buckeye's okay. They're open 24 hours. It's accessible.
It's a diner.
It's a donut.
That's so awesome. All right,
that,
man.
listeners, is free right there. That's bonus material. Well, I hope you've been enjoying our conversation with James. As I said, Alana and I were thrilled to be able to have him on the show and just capture his story and his insight and wisdom, and both as a husband / father, as well as a principal, and in the work that he's doing for young people on a regular basis. There is a lot more to come. However, we're going to pause and break here and separate this into 2 episodes. So we will pick up right where we left off next time with part 2. So join us again for the second half of our conversation. And as always, until then, adios. Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. You know, we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.